No forced entry, not a single window broken, not a door kicked in, not a lock tampered with. Every entry point to the house secure, untouched. Exactly as it should be on a quiet Saturday night in a residential neighborhood in Tucson, Arizona. And yet, an 84-year-old woman is gone. Her pacemaker, the device keeping her heart beating, lies discarded on the floor like it means nothing. Her security cameras, every single one of them, deliberately destroyed. Smashed by someone who knew exactly where each one was positioned and took the time to locate and disable all of them before leaving. A trail of blood leads from somewhere inside the house toward the back door, which stands wide open to the Arizona desert. And here is the detail that makes every investigator's blood run cold. Nancy Guthrie had a dog, a companion animal that lived with her, that slept in her home, that would have been awake and alert on the night its owner was taken. Dogs bark at strangers. Dogs bark at danger. Dogs bark when something threatens the person they love. The neighbors heard nothing, no barking, no sounds of distress, no indication that anything was wrong in that house that night. Which means one of two things. Either the dog recognized whoever came through that door, knew them, trusted them, accepted them as safe, or someone knew exactly how to keep that animal quiet. Both possibilities lead to the same inescapable conclusion that investigators had been sitting with since February 2, 2026. Whoever came into Nancy Guthrie's home that night either had a key, or Nancy let them in. This is not a case about a stranger in the dark. This is a case about trust, about family, about the most dangerous kind of betrayal, the kind that comes from someone you never thought to fear. This is the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Before we walk through that crime scene, before we examine the evidence, the suspects, the theories, we need to spend a moment with Nancy. Because Nancy Guthrie is not an abstraction. She is not a headline or a case number or a missing person poster on a highway billboard in Arizona. She is a person, a real, specific, deeply loved human being, and understanding who she is makes everything that follows hit the way it should. Nancy had lived in Tucson for decades. She chose this city, the desert, the mountains, the particular quality of light that settles over the Santa Catalinas in the early morning, and she stayed. Long after most people would have moved closer to family, long after most people her age would have let someone else handle the details of daily life, Nancy stayed in the home she had built and the community she had become part of. She worshipped at St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church, a congregation she had been part of for years, the kind of church community where people know your name and notice when you're absent. She had 5 children. One of them is Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, former White House correspondent, one of the most recognizable journalists in American broadcasting, a woman whose face millions of Americans see every single morning before they've finished their first cup of coffee. But Nancy was not famous by association. She was known in Tucson for being Nancy, for showing up, for being present in her community in the quiet, consistent way that actually builds something lasting. She was 84 years old. She had a pacemaker. She required daily medication. She needed help with mobility, could not walk far unassisted, but her mind was sharp, fully present, engaged with the world around her. She was someone who had earned the right to feel safe in her own home. And on the night of February 1st, 2026, that safety was shattered. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe right now and hit that notification bell. We cover cases like this every single week, real stories, real families, real stakes. Nancy's story deserves to be heard by as many people as possible. You being here means her name reaches one more person. That matters. Now, let's go back to that Saturday evening, February 1st, 2026. A Saturday evening in Tucson. Warm for February the way Tucson evenings sometimes are. The desert holding on to the day's heat long after the sun drops behind the mountains. Tommaso Sane ordered an Uber. The destination, Nancy Guthrie's home. The ride was logged, time-stamped, documented in the kind of digital record that investigators would later pull and scrutinize down to the minute. There was nothing unusual about it. This was a routine visit, a son-in-law checking in on his wife's mother, sharing a meal, spending time with an elderly woman who lived alone. He arrived while it was still light outside. They had dinner together. They talked about family, about everyday things, about nothing in particular. The kind of conversation that happens between people who are comfortable with each other, people who have shared holidays and gatherings and years of ordinary moments. Nothing about that evening was supposed to be remarkable. Several hours later, sometime around 9 or 10 in the evening, Tommaso called another Uber. He left. The second ride, like the first, was logged and time-stamped. He went home to the residence he shared with Annie, Nancy's daughter, his wife. And according to those Uber records, that is where he stayed. Nancy was alone now, an 84-year-old woman in her home at night, the house settling into its familiar quiet, the desert dark outside the windows, her routine winding down towards sleep the same way it had wound down on thousands of Saturday nights before. And at some point, between Tommaso's departure and the morning of February 2nd, everything went catastrophically wrong. We do not know exactly when. We do not know exactly how. The only person who could tell us what Nancy's state of mind was during those final hours What she said, what she mentioned, whether anything felt wrong, is Tommaso. And Tommaso is not talking. Not yet. Before we go any further, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments below. I read every single one. On a case like this, a case that has reached every corner of this country, I want to know where you're tuning in from. February 2nd, 2026. Someone walks into Nancy Guthrie's home expecting to find her going about her morning routine, maybe making coffee, maybe sitting in her favorite chair, maybe getting ready for the Sunday church live stream she watched almost every week without fail. Nancy isn't there. And what they find instead will define this investigation for months. The back door is open, not unlocked, not ajar, standing completely open, wide to the Arizona desert, as if someone left in a hurry, or as if someone was taken. Beyond that doorway, the desert stretches out vast and unforgiving, the kind of landscape where people disappear and search parties walk for days and find nothing. But it is what is inside the house that tells the real story, not misplaced, not fallen. Discarded, like an item someone removed and set down without ceremony. This is not a piece of loose jewelry or a forgotten accessory. This is the medical device regulating an 84-year-old woman's heartbeat. Without it, Nancy's life is in immediate danger. Every hour that passes without that device increases the medical urgency of this case in ways that make investigators' hands move faster and their voices get quieter. Whoever removed it knew exactly what they were doing. Then the cameras. Nancy had security cameras positioned throughout her home. She lived alone. The cameras were her eyes, her record, her protection. Now every single one of them is destroyed, smashed, deliberately disabled by someone who moved through the house, locating each device and taking the time to neutralize it. That level of awareness does not come from a panicked intruder. It comes from someone who knew where those cameras were, someone who had been inside before. Then the blood. A trail of it, not a large volume, not the kind of scene you see in a violent attack, but enough. Enough to make every forensic investigator's stomach drop. Enough to confirm that Nancy was injured. Enough to trace a path of movement from somewhere inside the house toward that open back door. DNA analysis confirms what everyone already feared. It is Nancy's blood. And through all of it, through the open door and the pacemaker and the destroyed cameras and the blood, not a single sign of forced entry. Not one broken window, not one kicked-in door, not one tampered lock. The FBI gets involved almost immediately. That tells you everything about how seriously this case is being taken from the very first hours. This is not a routine welfare check that quietly gets filed. This is federal. Resources mobilized, agents deployed, a missing person case elevated to something that reaches the highest levels of law enforcement within hours of that 911 call. Because Nancy Guthrie is not just missing, she was taken by someone who knew her home well enough to destroy every camera inside it, by someone her dog did not bark at, someone who either had a key or walked through a door that Nancy opened herself. One camera survived. Whoever came into that house that night knew where the interior cameras were. They found every single one and they destroyed them all. But the doorbell camera at the front of the house, that one captured something before the destruction began. And when the FBI's technical team retrieves the footage, what they see sends a chill through everyone who watches it. Deliberate cinematic. Paint this visually. A figure moves through the darkness, masked, gloved, dressed entirely in black, the kind of clothing chosen specifically to absorb light rather than reflect it, to disappear into a dark residential street in the dead of night. This is not someone stumbling around in the dark. This is not someone improvising, figuring it out as they go. The movements are deliberate, calculated, purposeful. The figure approaches Nancy's property with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where they are going. They move toward the door with precision, and then the footage cuts out, because that is when the cameras inside were destroyed. But those few seconds of video tell investigators everything they need to know about intent. This was planned. This was premeditated. This was someone who came prepared, who thought through every step, who understood what needed to be done and in what order, and who executed that plan with a discipline that does not come from panic or impulse. The FBI analyzes the footage frame by frame. They use enhancement software to pull every possible identifying detail from the image. They measure the figure's height against known objects in the frame. They study the gait, the specific way this person walks, looking for anything distinctive that might narrow the field. They examine every visible piece of clothing for logos, brands, distinguishing features. They find none. The mask conceals the face completely. The gloves hide the hands. The dark clothing reveals no brand, no logo, no detail that can be traced to a purchase record or a specific retailer. You cannot tell gender. You cannot see hair or eyes. You cannot identify a single distinguishing physical feature. But you can see knowledge. You can see that this person knew this property, knew where to go, knew what to disable, knew the layout well enough to move through it in complete darkness and find every camera inside. And that knowledge points towards someone familiar, someone who had been inside that house before. Do not go anywhere. What comes next? Tommaso's behavior, the garage door, the power of attorney, the detention near the Mexican border, is the section that will make everything click into place. But before we go there, hit that like button right now. One tap. It puts Nancy's story in front of more people who need to hear it. Do it now. I'll wait. His name is Tommaso Sane, 63 years old, Italian-born. An academic, a teacher, a scholar, someone who spent his career in education, who built his identity around knowledge and intellectual life. He came to America, built a life here, and married Annie Guthrie, one of Nancy's daughters. He was not a stranger who drifted into this family, he was part of it. He had sat at holiday tables with Nancy. He had been present for family gatherings across years. He was someone she knew, someone she trusted, someone she had opened her door to countless times without a second thought. And on the night of February 1st, 2026, he was the last confirmed person to see her alive. Build the circumstantial weight methodically. 3 days before Nancy vanished, on January 28th, Tommaso did something that would later catch investigators' attention. He closed Nancy's garage door. The garage door that, when closed, blocked the field of view of her Ring doorbell camera, created a blind spot, a gap in the digital record of who came and went from that property in the days leading up to her disappearance. People close garage doors. It is not inherently suspicious, but context matters. Nancy had those cameras because she lived alone, because they were her protection. And in the days before she disappeared, a blind spot appeared in exactly the place investigators would later need to see most clearly. Then there is the power of attorney. Tommaso had legal authority over Nancy's financial affairs, access to her accounts, the ability to make decisions about her money, to transfer funds, pay bills, manage her financial life. A common arrangement in families with aging parents, completely normal on its own. But when that parent suddenly vanishes and the person with financial control is the last one who saw her alive, it becomes relevant. Investigators reach out to Tommaso. They want him to come in. They wanted to walk them through that final evening. What Nancy said, how she seemed, whether she mentioned feeling uneasy about anything. His response shocks everyone. He hires a criminal defense attorney, and he stops talking completely. The public reaction is immediate and brutal. If he is innocent, people ask, why won't he cooperate? If he has nothing to hide, why the lawyer? If he cares about Nancy, why refuse to help find her? 9 days after Nancy vanishes, Tommaso is pulled over during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona. A small community near the Mexican border, 60 miles south of Tucson. Flags go up instantly. He is detained, brought in for questioning. For the first time since February 1st, investigators have him in a room where he cannot simply walk away. Even then, with his attorney present, with investigators working every angle, Tommaso remains silent. After several hours, without enough evidence to hold him, they have no choice. He walks out, no charges filed, no arrest made, but a message sent loud and clear to everyone watching this case. Investigators believe Tommaso knows something. They just cannot prove it yet. On February 3rd, just 2 days after Nancy disappeared, the first note arrived. TMZ received it through their tip line, a ransom demand, Bitcoin, millions of dollars, a specific wallet address, a deadline, the language of urgency, threatening consequences if payment wasn't made, claiming to have Nancy, claiming she was alive and would stay that way only if the demands were met. The same note, or a version of it, was sent simultaneously to 2 Tucson television stations. All 3 outlets forwarded it immediately to the FBI and local law enforcement. For a brief, tense moment, investigators have to consider it. In abduction cases, ransom demands have to be taken seriously until they can be proven otherwise. You do not dismiss a note claiming to have a missing 84-year-old woman just because it feels off. You investigate it. You trace the wallet address, you analyze the language, you look for proof of life. There is no proof of life. And here is what tells investigators quickly, definitively, that these notes are not real. Kidnappers who want money keep their victims alive and as healthy as possible. A living, breathing hostage is leverage. A living, breathing hostage is the entire basis of the transaction. They do not remove pacemakers. They do not leave blood trails. They do not destroy evidence inside the home of the person they are claiming to hold for ransom, unless the notes are not about ransom at all. Unless the notes are a distraction, designed to make a disappearance look like a kidnapping when it is really something else entirely. A second note arrives with a different deadline. Then a third, this one not claiming responsibility, but claiming to have information about who was responsible and demanding 1 Bitcoin in exchange for that name. The FBI tracks the source. What they find is not a kidnapper. It is an opportunist. A scammer who saw a high-profile missing person case splashed across every news channel in America and decided to try to profit from it. Someone with no connection to Nancy, no knowledge of what actually happened. Just a predatory calculation that grief and desperation make people easy to exploit. He is arrested. The notes are confirmed as fraudulent. And while investigators spent days chasing this thread, whoever actually took Nancy had more time to disappear. I want to pause here and ask you something real. Someone looked at a family in the worst moment of their lives, a daughter begging for her mother on national television, and decided to send fake ransom notes to make money off that pain. What does that tell you about the world we live in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what you think. February 3rd, 2026, 2 days after her mother vanished. Savannah Guthrie steps in front of a camera. But this time she is not anchoring the Today Show. She is not delivering the morning news to millions of Americans from a polished studio set. This time she is on the other side of the story entirely. Her face carries the particular devastation of someone who has not slept, who has been running on adrenaline and dread for 48 hours, who is holding herself together through sheer force of will, because falling apart is not an option when your mother is missing. She looks directly into the camera. Please, she says, if you have any information about where my mother is, please come forward. My mother needs her medication. She needs her pacemaker. She needs help. The video goes viral within hours. Savannah takes a leave of absence from the Today Show, steps away from the career she built. The White House correspondence, the anchor chair, the platform that millions of Americans tune into every morning, because finding her mother is the only thing that matters now. Her co-anchors announce her absence on air with visible emotion. America, which has watched Savannah deliver the news for years, now watches her live through the kind of story no journalist ever wants to become. Her siblings mobilize immediately. Nancy had 5 children and they moved together, organizing search efforts across Tucson, coordinating with law enforcement, putting up billboards across Arizona and neighboring states showing Nancy's face with a simple question. Have you seen this woman? The family offers a reward, $50,000. The FBI matches it, doubling the total to $100,000. Tips flood in, possible sightings, theories. None of it produces the breakthrough that matters. But beneath all of this, beneath the community vigils and the search parties and the billboards and the public appeals, something is tearing this family apart from the inside, because one of their own is the prime suspect. Annie Guthrie, Nancy's daughter, Savannah's sister, is married to Tommaso Sane, the man who was last with their mother. The man who will not talk to investigators, and Annie has stayed silent too. No interviews, no public statements, no press conferences alongside her siblings. Her silence creates its own unbearable questions. This is the tragedy within the tragedy, and it is one that no search party can fix. Every investigation eventually reaches the point where detectives step back and ask themselves the hardest question. What actually happened here? In the Nancy Guthrie case, that question produces 3 distinct theories. 3 different explanations for how an 84-year-old woman vanished from her own home with no forced entry: a destroyed camera system, a discarded pacemaker, and a trail of her own blood leading to an open back door. Theory 1. Tommaso did it. This is what most people believe. And the circumstantial case is not nothing. Tommaso was the last confirmed person to see Nancy alive. He knew the house, its layout, its cameras, its routines. 3 days before she vanished, he closed a garage door that blocked the Ring camera's field of view. He had power of attorney over her finances, access to her accounts, control over her assets. He had both opportunity and motive, and then there is his behavior. The immediate attorney, the total silence, the refusal to answer even basic questions about that final evening. The detention near the Mexican border 9 days after Nancy disappeared. Every piece of circumstantial evidence forms a line, and that line points directly at Tommaso Sane. Theory 2. Tommaso is innocent. The Uber records show he left Nancy's home and went to his own residence. There is no digital evidence of him returning, no second ride, no GPS data showing his vehicle moving, no record of him going back. This theory argues that someone else waited, someone who knew Tommaso was visiting that night, someone who planned to move after he left, knowing that suspicion would fall on the last person who saw her. Maybe someone else wanted Nancy's money. Maybe the masked figure on the doorbell footage is not Tommaso at all. Maybe an innocent man is being destroyed by circumstance while the real perpetrator moves freely through the world. Innocent people get railroaded. It happens. And once 1 million people decide you are guilty, clearing your name becomes nearly impossible regardless of the facts. Theory 3, the accident. This one falls between the extremes. Maybe Nancy had a medical emergency that night, a fall, a cardiac event, a crisis that happened after Tommaso left, and someone, possibly a family member, possibly someone with access, found her and panicked. Instead of calling for help, they made a catastrophic decision. They staged the scene, removed the pacemaker to create the appearance of something sinister, created a narrative designed to make investigators look for an intruder rather than someone close to Nancy. This theory explains the blood without requiring a violent attack. It explains the absence of forced entry. It explains staging elements that do not fit typical abduction scenarios. And it explains how someone with no history of violence ends up at the center of a murder investigation. Not because they are a killer, but because one terrible decision in a moment of panic trapped them completely. What time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. I ask because Nancy's family has been counting every hour since February 1st. Every hour without answers. I want us to feel the weight of that time together. Months pass. The media pressure does not slow down, it intensifies. Cable news, true crime podcasts, Online communities with thousands of members spending hours building timelines, debating theories, analyzing every public detail of the case. Tommaso Sane's face appears alongside headlines that do not use the word alleged. The court of public opinion has rendered its verdict without a trial, without charges, without a single piece of direct evidence. He is living under a microscope, watched, followed, documented, and still he does not speak. Then a documentary is produced, thorough, comprehensive. It presents the evidence against Tommaso methodically, walks through the timeline, highlights every suspicious detail, interviews experts who explain why his behavior points toward guilt. It airs on a major streaming platform. Millions watch it. And Tommaso Sane makes a decision that shocks everyone who's been following this case. He files a defamation lawsuit. The lawsuit claims false information was presented, that his reputation was destroyed without evidence, that he was accused of a crime he did not commit. But more than the legal action itself, the lawsuit signals something else. Tommaso is done staying silent. He agrees to a public interview, not with law enforcement, with a journalist, on camera. His words broadcast to the world. The announcement sends shockwaves through the true crime community. When the interview airs, Tommaso appears calm, visibly tired. The months of scrutiny have marked him in ways that are visible on his face, in the way he holds himself. But he is composed, and for the first time he talks. He describes that final evening in detail. Dinner was normal. The conversation was ordinary, family matters, everyday things. When he left, Nancy walked him to the door. She said goodbye, she seemed fine. Nothing suggested she was in danger or distressed. The interviewer asks the question everyone needs answered. Why didn't you cooperate with police? Tommaso's answer is measured. His attorney advised him that in high-profile cases, innocent people become targets. He was terrified of being railroaded, of having his words twisted, of being convicted in the court of public opinion before any facts were established. He admits it looks bad. He acknowledges his silence created suspicion. But he maintains it was the only way to protect himself from a system he did not trust. He addresses the specific evidence point by point. The garage door, he closed it because it was making noise in the wind and bothering Nancy, not preparation. A simple act, the power of attorney, a normal arrangement. He shows records of every transaction made on Nancy's behalf, all legitimate, all documented. The lack of forced entry, multiple people had keys to Nancy's home, family members, church friends. The absence of a broken lock does not prove he was there. Then he reveals something that has never been made public. During dinner that evening, Nancy received a phone call. He does not know who from. At one point during the meal, a noise outside made Nancy pause. She dismissed it as neighborhood cats, but she paused. Her demeanor that night, the specific things she said about her plans for the week ahead, he provides details that investigators will need to verify against phone records and neighbor accounts. The interviewer leans forward. Did you harm Nancy Guthrie? Did you have anything to do with her disappearance? Tommaso looks straight into the camera. No, absolutely not. She was family. The idea is incomprehensible to him. And then near the end, he addresses Nancy directly. If somehow she can hear this, people are looking for her. Her family has not given up. He has not given up. And he is sorry his silence made him look guilty when he was just trying to survive. Here is where this case stands today. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. No body has been found. No additional evidence has emerged that definitively resolves what happened on the night of February 1st, 2026. Tommaso Sane has not been charged with any crime. He remains free, legally innocent, living under the shadow of suspicion that his interview shifted but did not lift. The investigation remains open and active. The FBI continues working the case. Savannah Guthrie continues searching for her mother. The $100,000 reward remains unclaimed. And the masked figure caught on that doorbell camera, deliberate, prepared, moving through the darkness with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where they were going, has never been identified. Tommaso's interview changed the conversation. His explanations for the garage door and the power of attorney were coherent. His fear of being railroaded is understandable. The justice system is not perfect, and innocent people have been destroyed by it. His direct denial, looking into the camera without flinching, was either the most convincing performance of an innocent man or the most convincing performance of a guilty one. The inconsistencies he admitted to could be the honest confusion of human memory under extreme stress, or they could be carefully constructed gaps designed to create reasonable doubt. Without independent verification of the phone call he mentioned, without corroboration of the noise Nancy heard outside, without something that moves this case from suspicion to proof, his words are one more piece of an impossibly complex puzzle. What we know for certain is this. An 84-year-old woman was taken from her home by someone who knew it well enough to destroy every camera inside it. Someone her dog did not bark at. Someone who either had a key or walked through a door she opened herself. She is without her pacemaker. She is without her daily medication. And somewhere out there, someone knows exactly where she is. If this case has stayed with you, share this video right now. Not for the numbers, for Nancy. Every share keeps her name alive. Every view is another person who knows her story and might have the piece of information that breaks this case open. If you have anything at all, contact the FBI tip line. The reward is still available. Your information, even if it seems small, could matter. Subscribe, hit the bell, and drop one word in the comments, just one, that describes how you're feeling after everything we just covered. And tell me, after hearing everything, do you believe Tommaso? I want to know what this community thinks. What's the weather like where you are today? Nancy loved Tucson, the desert air, the laid-back gentleness of it. She deserves to feel that air again. Nancy Guthrie is still out there, and we will not stop saying her name. Thank you for watching.